Once again, for the few of you who don't know me well, my name is John Plecnik, and I'm humbled to serve as one of your 3 Lake County Commissioners. I'm finishing up the year as President of the Board of Lake County Commissioners. And as our host, Mr. Bennett, alluded to, I started this 2-year term in 2023 with the commissioners looking to raise our sales tax to the 3rd highest in all of Ohio. That would have been devastating to our retail sector, to our manufacturing center, and that's not my opinion. That's what all of Mentor City Council had to say. And so I knew, not just as a Republican, as a conservative, but also as a tax professor, that the damage that tax increase would do to our community could not be undone. It had to be stopped if there was any way possible, and I'm grateful for the enormous outpouring of support that I had when I voted loud and proud, no. And all of us together, not just me, all of us together were able to convince the other 2 commissioners that in an age of inflation, we shouldn't tack another 0.5% on to everyone else's purchase. And it was said a couple times by advocates for the tax increase that 0.5% wasn't a big deal. It's just 0.5 penny, they said. But it translated to somewhere between $22 and $24 million a year, the single biggest tax increase in Lake County history. And we were able to stop that together, so I'm proud to be Commissioner No. But as you know, the fight is never over, and government is always looking to grow, and taxes are always creeping up one way or the other. And the latest problem we've run into in our community, and I've heard more about this than any other issue as your county commissioner, is the enormous increase in property values and appraisals that we've seen as a result of the inflation from Washington, D.C. And I want to start by putting the blame where it begins. Shame on you, Joe Biden. How dare you, Kamala Harris? You lost for a reason, because you hurt America, and you hurt us bad.
Amen. Amen.
But it's not enough to just point the finger and say Biden and Harris are terrible. We all know that. It's why Donald Trump won overwhelmingly this past November. It's because Americans stood up and said, no, we are not doing this anymore. But a lot of the damage is still done. You can't unspend trillions of dollars. You can't unprint trillions of dollars. And that inflation tax is affecting all of us now, not just in the form of higher grocery and energy bills, but in the form of higher property taxes. Now, in the 70s, the State House passed a reform that was supposed to protect us from those inflationary increases. But as many of you know, that doesn't apply to school districts with the supposed 20 mil floor. And I don't want to go into all the technicalities today, because we would need a full day seminar to talk about how property taxes are calculated in Ohio. And by the way, part of the problem is it's deliberately complex. They want it to be hard for you to calculate your final bill, so it's harder for you to object and propose solutions. But I want to make it simple for you. 2 out of 3 school districts in Ohio, that protection doesn't apply, because they're under the 20 mil floor to begin with, so you have no protection from inflationary increases in 2 out of 3 school districts in Ohio, and my school district is in that unhappy 2/3. I suspect that most of us in Lake County will find out, even if their school district hasn't officially announced that they're under the 20 mil floor, that they are in fact under that floor too. So most of us are going to experience a very large increase in our property taxes anytime our values go up, and because of inflation, our values have gone up a historic amount. We got hugely hit 3 years ago, and now we're about to be hit even more. The average property value increase, the average appraised value increase, is somewhere between 30 and 35% in Ohio. And Lake County is right smack dab in the middle of that. We're a little over 30% in terms of our average increase. Some of us had much higher, some of us had a little lower, but the average is 30%.
Wow.
And that doesn't mean you're going to have a 30% increase in your taxes, but fat math, depending on your school district, it typically translates to about half that increase. So if you have a 30% increase in value, on average, you're going to see a 15% increase in taxes. And we have to simplify. If we're going to fight this thing politically, we can't fight it on their terms and go through 30 lines of statute and talk about the exception to the exception to the exception and how this applies and then calculate it. We need to do fat math and say, everybody's getting about a 30% increase in value and about a 15% increase in taxes. And a double-digit increase in property taxes is a big problem. It hurts all of us, but it's a clear and present danger to folks on a fixed income, whether they be seniors, disabled veterans, or anyone else. If you're on a fixed income, you can't afford to have another double-digit increase to your bill. And what it translates to in practical terms is folks are being forced to sell their houses, they're being forced to move away from their families, and in the case of seniors, where a butterfly landing on their shoulder can sometimes be the difference between 10 years of healthy life with their family and passing away, this is killing people. We are taxing seniors out of their homes, and we are killing them by allowing this to stay in place. And I would propose two things in response. I would propose two solutions in response to this problem. Number one, we should have a freeze on property values in between sales. To do what we do now, to increase values when you haven't sold your home, is a tax on unrealized gains. Right. And what Republican didn't mock Camilla Harris for proposing that? We said she was insane. And I agree, she was insane to propose that. It would have tanked the economy. And yet here at Ohio, at the state level, we're doing the same thing. We're taxing unrealized gains, gains created by the inflationary policies from Washington, D.C. So between D.C. and Columbus, folks here in Lake County are getting hosed. And that is not right, and that is not fair. So ideally, we would say no increases in between sales. And when we have a sale, we have a fair, objective number to tell us what that home is really worth. I'll tell you right now, if anyone wants to buy my house for what the county auditor says it's worth, sold. Sold right now. Come see me after the talk. I would love to sign a contract with you today. So we have some pretty unrealistic values. But even if they are realistic, it's not fair. It's not fair to tax us on a gain we haven't realized yet. We have that principle at the federal level. We defended it by re-electing Donald Trump. We need to have that principle here at the state level. No tax on unrealized gains. But even if our overlords in Columbus don't care enough to do that, at the very least, we could follow the lead of a state like Florida that caps how much your taxes go up each year. Florida's Save Our Homes law, which they put in their constitution, has a 3% cap. Can't go up more than 3% a year on your home's value in between sales. Is that as good as a freeze? No, but it's a lot better to have a 3% increase than a 30% increase, right? So I would be happy to take that for now. That's something that should happen for all of us. That's something that should happen for all of us, rich, poor, young, old, and in between. But I do believe we need to focus even more so on those who are hurt the most, those most in need. If we claim to be conservative, we claim to be Christian, we claim to be Jewish, and we claim to care about and love our neighbor, then we should look at those on a fixed income with even more active caring than all the rest of us. And by that I mean, instead of taxing seniors out of their homes, we should acknowledge that after paying your taxes faithfully for 65 years, that is enough.
Yes.
Done. There should be a 100% property tax exemption for seniors. And I want to live to be 65 to enjoy that exemption. We all deserve that when we turn 65. This isn't, I had some people say, oh, this is a special interest group. We're trying to appeal to seniors. Like, seniors aren't a special interest group. Seniors are every one of us. Should God bless us to live that long.
Right.
And if we are so blessed, I would hope that our neighbors would care enough about us to give us the respect, to let us age in place, live in our own homes, and when the time comes, die in our own homes. We shouldn't be forced to go to some apartment in a neighborhood far away from our family where you don't know anyone, have no one to care for you because you can't afford to stay in your family home. That is not right, and that is not the American dream. So in addition to freezing property values for everyone in between sales, we should have a 100% property tax exemption for seniors. And that will not just help those who are seniors today, it will help all of us as we seek, just like they do today, to stay in our homes and have some dignity in the later part of our life when we might not be making a ton of money. But I gotta say again, if 65 years of paying taxes is not enough, heaven help us. That is a very, very modest gift to people who have supported the tax base their entire lives. Those two simple fixes don't require a constitutional amendment. You could do it through a petition and a constitutional amendment, but it's not necessary. Right here, right now, the state legislature has the power to pass a law to create both of these protections for us. All we need is our state representatives, our state senators, and the governor to come together. And I will tell you, lame duck session just closed. They passed tons and tons of laws. Tons of laws just rammed through that no one had heard about. Some of them good, some of them not so good. But I'm here to say they had no problem making dramatic amendments to the Ohio Revised Code on everything you can think of. From education to bathrooms, and a lot of them are good. I'm not criticizing it. I'm just saying, for anyone who says, it takes time, we need to go through committee. That's what you say when you don't mean to do anything. Speaking of committees, our state representative Dan Troy, my state rep, has taken credit for creating the Joint Committee on Property Tax Reform. Now, I don't know how big a role he played in adopting that into law. It's a good idea. There should be a committee to talk about this problem. In fact, I think that's all the General Assembly should talk about until they fix it. But the problem is that was adopted in the state budget almost 2 years ago. They've been talking and talking and talking and talking and talking. They've proposed over a dozen bills, and by the way, none of them are as good. None of them are as good as they should be. None of them accomplish the two simple things I've laid out for you today, the two principles we should all be fighting for. Number one, no tax on unrealized gains for anyone. Number two, no tax on seniors. Those principles should be inviolate, and any property tax reform should incorporate them. But I will say this. All the dozen proposals that our state reps and senators have made across the state are better than the current system. We'd all be happier if any one of them passed. Are they good enough? No. But I'll take a down payment. This is an imperfect world. The sad thing is, everyone likes to talk and talk and talk and talk about how much they've talked and talked and talked and talked and proposed bill after bill after bill, but for some reason, no one actually wants to vote on them. No one actually wants to vote on them. Now, whether there's a certain special interest or two behind that, I'll leave it for you to judge. But here and now, lame duck session has closed. Dozens of sweeping bills and reforms have passed, and yet not a blip, not a modest, not a tiny change on property taxes. That is wrong. And we need to be telling the Republican majorities in Columbus, I don't want to hear about all these great things you say you're doing until you fix this problem. And it's not a giveaway. I've heard a few people say, oh, why are we giving away money? Giving away? This isn't communist Russia. This is our property and our money. And we're talking about how you shouldn't take so much of it. We're talking about reducing the increase in property taxes. In Columbus's terms, in government's terms, that's them giving away their money. No. That is our money. That is our money. You're not giving it to us. We're giving it to you. And frankly, we've given you too much already. We've given you too much already. And I know it's easy to poo-poo. This is what politicians do. They go, oh, they don't really know. It's a complicated issue. There are many things that need to be balanced. You have to understand, if I do this bad, crazy thing would happen. So it's complicated. That's what they stand behind. But I'll tell you, one reason they can't stand me is I'm a tax professor.
Yeah.
This is what I do for a living.
That's right.
I'm the one who says it's complicated, you don't understand.
Hey.
I'm the one who actually has spent a lifetime studying these issues, exploring what's fair and what's not, what works and what doesn't. And let me tell you, Ohio's property tax system is a mess. It is deliberately overcomplex, it is ridiculously unfair, and it is taxing people, in particular our seniors, our disabled veterans, and people on fixed incomes out of their homes. And I really do think that so much of this is intentional. The fact that the county auditor is the one who sends out the revaluation makes it look like the auditor might decide your value. The fact that the county treasurer has to put their name on the bill makes it look like they're the ones charging you. It's so convenient for the folks who are actually in charge of our property values, our state reps and state senators, because no one knows who to blame. And I'm not here to play the blame game. I'm not interested. There's no profit in it. I want our state reps and senators to fix this this now. That's what I want. I don't want to blame anybody. I want to call them a hero. I want to talk about Dan Troy, Jerry Serino, and Jamie Callender saving the day for Lake County, Ohio. That's what I want to talk about. Because we would change the world if Ohio could set the standard right here and now. And we have to set the standard now. Those of you who are a little older than me know what a rare day we are living in. With a Republican president, a Republican Congress, a Republican state and state legislature and governor, and Republicans here locally. I don't know we will ever be in a time where we have the opportunity to come together and make a change like this. Lord knows the Democrats won't. They love to talk about it when they're out of power, but we all know a Democrat never saw a tax they didn't like. So if there is ever going to be reform, it has to be now. I'm not saying this because I'm impatient. I'm saying this because I know if we let this opportunity slip, it will never come to us again. So let's be pragmatic for a moment. Because many people say, well, Commissioner, it's great for you to say that, but you're not a state rep or state senator. You can't propose a bill. You can't vote. You're just wasting your time. You're right. I'm just a tax-paying citizen who happens to be a tax professor with a degree in taxation who's been cited as authority by the Supreme Court. I'm just a really super informed citizen. I understand that. I don't have any legal authority to change this. And neither do any of you in this room. But you know what we do have? We have the authority as we the people to tell our state reps and senators, I don't want an update on this great thing or this awesome thing or that road you're naming after somebody. I don't want to hear about how much money you brought for this theater or that historic district. I don't want to hear about how you're spending my money. I want to hear about how you're finally reforming this system. Not just to be fair to me, but more so to stop taxing our seniors out of their homes. We need, as a practical action item, to come together, and every time we see a state rep, and every time we see a state senator, whether it be at church, in the grocery store, at the Lake GOP Christmas party, I don't care when or where, you go up to them and say, I want two things from you before I hear another word. I want no more tax on unrealized gains, and no more property tax on our seniors. And don't say another word to me. I don't want an update on anything else until you get that job done. We also need to send an email. We need to send a physical print. Remember those letters that this post office thing delivers? We need to send letters in the mail. That will shock state reps and senators, by the way. Getting an actual piece of paper in the mail is a powerful tool. Send them an email, that costs you nothing but a click. Send them a stamped letter too. And send that same letter to your local paper and say, letter to the editor, we need property tax relief today, and here's what it looks like. Number one, no tax on unrealized gains. Number two, no property tax on our senior citizens. And if we do that, I guarantee you, if we all, as the residents of Lake County, Ohio, do our part, I know our state reps and senators will hear us. Because they can't get reelected if they don't hear us. But if we all say it's hopeless and no one cares and no one listens and I'm a nothing and a nobody, well yeah, I'm a nothing and a nobody. Yeah, none of us are on the governor's Christmas list. We're not being invited to the governor's mansion. We're not talking to all the bigwigs in Columbus. But all of us have a voice. And collectively, we have the most powerful voice. And too often we say, it can't be done. I got to tell you something. When they told Donald J. Trump, you can't win because you were charged, you were convicted, you were sued, you were accused, Donald Trump didn't say, oh no, it's not possible. No one in history has ever done this. He said, I'll do it. I got this. Republicans who support Trump need to start acting more like Trump. He is the example. WWDJTD. What would Donald J. Trump do? And he would not give up just because he doesn't have the formal authority. Donald Trump isn't even president yet. And he said to Congress, don't waste our money. That's right. He killed that ridiculous spending bill with a tweet. We have to understand that there is power in a voice and that all of us have one. And no, we're not Donald Trump. We don't have the celebrity. We don't have the impact of a once and future president of the United States. We have to humbly admit that. But collectively, all of America has the biggest voice of all. And right here in this room, if every single person did what I said, if every single one of us approaches our state reps and senators in person, sends them a letter, sends them an email, and respectfully asks them to make a change, I believe they will. I believe they will advocate for us, because some of them are trying to do the right thing and just don't know what the right thing is. Remember, this is a complex system. I'm a tax professor, they're not. I understand that not everyone has studied this to the degree that Leonard Gilbert and Brian Massey and others have. Not everyone understands the system, and that includes state reps and senators. And some folks may not have our best interests at heart, but they want to be reelected. And if they hear from enough of us, just like the unjust judge in the Bible, you keep knocking on that unjust judge's door and demanding change, they will do the right thing in spite of themselves. So we have a lot of power in this room. And I want to impose on everyone the action item, the calling to reach out to your representatives. But I want to add another layer to it. And I'm not singling out our school board member. He just happens to be the only elected school board member here, Dennis Keeney from Riverside. But we need to have a conversation with our school board too. Because just as Columbus, just as the state legislature sets the value for our homes, the school board set a majority of the rate. A majority of our property taxes go to the schools. And the reality is, there's too much bureaucracy. If we fired half the administrators and we paid the other half as much, there'd still be too many overpaid administrators. This is not the false war between teachers and taxpayers. It's administrators and bureaucracy who teach nothing and do nothing and live off the public teat that need to be fired. Once again, if Donald Trump were here, he'd say, you're fired. We need to be more like him. And that's controversial and hard. But it works. And that's why we are about to enter the golden age nationally. But we won't have that here locally if we don't follow Donald Trump's example. And we need to talk to our school boards. I actually had a school board member reach out to me and say, why are you commissioners raising my property taxes? And I had to tell him, I'm sorry, but it's those levies you've been voting for all these years that raised your property taxes. You got to learn your job first before you criticize. You got to take the log out of your eye before you look at the twig in someone else's. And too many school board members don't even know that passing school levies raises property taxes. It's scary, folks. But rather than criticize those people, we need to help them. We need to provide them with visions of how to do better. We need to tell them what we expect as their constituents, because none of us can do this alone. I'm an elected official. I know firsthand that I'm not perfect. I make mistakes, and I do a much better job when all of you tell me, John, this is what we need. This is what we put you there to do. That helps. Most folks want to do the right thing, but they're not going to get there unless they know what the right thing is. And if there ever was an issue that was deliberately convoluted and complex, it is Ohio's property tax system. So let me just say, before we open up for questions, let me just say one more time, for the sake of our seniors, for the sake of all of us, we have to reach out to our state representatives and senators, and we have to say, no more tax on unrealized gains, freeze property values in between sales, or at least cap them like Florida does, and a 100% property tax exemption for our seniors. 65 years of paying taxes enough. Let us die in peace. Amen.
Thank you.